This is Brad with the Crary Art Gallery, and with us today we have Derrick Riley. He's going to be exhibiting at the Crary Art Gallery from March 3rd through March 24th. Welcome to the gallery.
Thank you.
I looked at your work, and I'm not sure if I get to comprehend exactly what your work entails. Can you describe to me what you're going to be exhibiting at the Crary?
Okay, it's a lot of printmaking that I'm going to be showing up there. Most of it's going to be woodcuts, and it's just a carving in a block of wood and printed like a big rubber stamp. And I'll also have some silk screens, which are a little easier to understand because it's still used widely for T-shirts and band posters, and most people do know about silk screen. So I've got some silk screens I'm going to be setting up too, but for the most part, it's all going to be woodcuts.
Okay, the woodcuts, man. What's the process of creating a woodcut print?
Well, the first thing I do is get a block of wood, and I'll figure out what I want to put on it, and I sketch it out in pencil, and then I draw the whole thing out again in Sharpie, and I draw it exactly how I want it to look. And at that point, I'll stain the block red so that I can see where I've carved.
So how big are these blocks of wood, though?
Well, they're various sizes. I've got any of them from about 6 inches by 10 inches to 4 foot by 8 foot, which is the biggest I have the capabilities of printing here. So it's a pretty wide range, and I'm gonna be sending a wide range of size pieces up to the show as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you overlay your print over top of the wood, and you carve it out.
Yeah, carve it out. I've got some. I've got the tools here. I'll just bring them up. I've got some Japanese hand tools. They're handmade in Japan.
Uh-huh.
Super sharp, and I carve everything out by hand.
Mm-hmm.
I get the carvings done. I've got some rubber rollers, and I roll the ink over the top of the board and squeeze it through an old press, and it transfers the ink from the top of the board to the paper.
Oh wow. That's pretty interesting. I understand you started off by drawing, then you eventually got to the medium where you are now. How did that process take place?
Well, I was a drawing major in undergrad, and I took a lot of drawing classes, and I eventually burned out. So I was looking for something fresh and something new, but something I could still use all those skills that I'd worked for years and years to kind of hone in drawing. And it just kind of naturally led into printmaking. It was something that I could still use all those drawing skills that I'd worked so hard to get, but at the same time it was fresh and new and interesting. Mm-hmm. And I've just been doing it ever since. And I very rarely ever do any just straight drawing work anymore. It's always drawing in order to prepare for a print.
Mm-hmm. Well, you use a unique subject matter as well. I mean, have you always? Well, why don't you describe to me what typically is your subject matter in your work?
Well, here recently, the last few years, it's all been Kentucky stories, either true Kentucky stories from like News of the Weird or from the newspaper or late news, and it's you'd be surprised how many odd things happen in real life, just stranger than you could make up on your own. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my inspirations come from news and really, here recently, the last few years, I've been working with Kentucky monster myths and legends. Mm-hmm. I wasn't born in Kentucky, but I've lived most of my life here. And Kentucky's a very interesting subject in its own because it's definitely got a identity crisis going on. We're not North, we're not South, and we've got people here with billions of dollars, and then people with just dollars. Uh-huh. So we got everything going on here, and so there's a wide variety of subject matter to deal with.
Uh-huh. So you've always dealt with topical matters, or is that how you started out?
It's not really how I started out. It's when I kind of figured out what I wanted to do is when I really took it to the level of social commentary and a little bit of satire. So for a long time, it's been dealing with actual events, actual things, and or even myths and legends that have in a lot of ways brought us to where we are.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you deal on topical subjects as well. I mean, do you find yourself, you listen to a story and, hey, you immediately think, I got to put that in print?
Yeah, several times. NPR is the best source of woodcut material. I've gotten several things off of NPR.
So how quickly can you generate a print?
No, I don't. It's not that. Well, it depends. I teach at several different universities here in Lexington, and if it's the middle of the school year, it seems to take me forever. A medium-sized block's probably going to take me 2 or 3 months during the school year.
Oh wow!
Outside of school in the summer, when I can really just sit on a block and go to town, I can usually get it started and finished in about 2 weeks.
But that's all carving by hand.
Yeah, I do everything. I've got an electric carver, and I'll probably have to get to it eventually because, I mean, you can't carve into wood too many years without feeling the effects on your knuckles. So I still enjoy doing it by hand, and I'm going to do it as long as I can.
I was curious, have you ever carved your work freehand, or you always sketch it out first?
I always sketch it out. I'm too anal with my details to do anything off the cuff. It's all always got to be planned out, which it's bad. I wish that I had some more free and open marks in my work, but at the same time, going into it without a plan for the end is a little scary for me. I like to get all the thinking out of the way first, and then I can just sit and watch a movie while I carve.
I hear you. So I'm sure you get different kinds of reaction when people view your work. What's a typical type of reaction?
Well, it all changes. A lot of people think it's funny, and it's meant to be funny. But a lot of people are really offended by it. I don't really understand why they're so offended. I had a show in Minnesota last year, and they had a sign-in sheet where people could leave comments.
Oh no!
And one person left a comment that was saying that I had daddy issues, and my dad's about my best friend. So. Absolutely wrong with it, but I don't know what he saw in the work to make him think that I had parent issues. That was not...
At least you take the criticism well, I guess.
Yeah, and it's weird. People get affected different ways when they look at it, and that's fine. That's part of viewing artwork. But it is meant to be funny. But everything's not funny to everybody.
Right, I hear you. And I notice as well. I mean, you cram all sorts of subject matters within some of your pieces as well.
Yeah.
You just bring in everything you could possibly can into it until you fill up your space? Is
A little bit. I kind of, at one time, was approaching it as in trying to put as many things in there as possible without really a composition in mind. And just seeing if I could work things around and have the composition just make itself. And they got out of control a little bit. A lot of them are just jumbled and hard to read. And I put them out more. It was really just more of an experiment to see if I could get things to work out just from nothing.
Right. Do you have any inspiration in terms of other artists?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, printmakers go back a long way. So there's an awful lot of people to look up to. There's, Albert Durr. If any woodcarver tells you that Albert Durr isn't their main person to look up to, they're probably lying, because he's widely considered to be the father of printmaking. So Albert Durr is right up there, number one. Another one that I really looked up to is Gustave Doré, who did a lot of illustrations for books, and Edgar Allan Poe and Dante's Inferno. Easier to find in books than about anywhere else. Posada from Mexico is a big inspiration. And then there's a lot of contemporary printmakers, people like Bill Fick, who teaches at I believe UNC. I think North Carolina. I'm not positive. It's either North Carolina or Duke. That could be a big mistake.
Right.
Tom Huck from St. Louis. He's another person to look up to. And really any contemporary printmakers. Cannonball Press up in Brooklyn. They do a lot of things that engage a lot of people who wouldn't be involved in printmaking and kind of bring them in. And, at one time printmaking was a thing that we saw 50 times on a walk down the street, and you don't see it anymore. Everything's digital.
Right.
So it's good and interesting to see people bringing back, bringing interest in the things that we've lost interest in.
Mm-hmm.
People that do that, I have a lot of respect for.
Do you find that you have more students that are participating in bringing printmaking back?
A little bit. It depends on the university. I've got in a lot of programs, printmaking is required for certain majors,
mm-hmm.
and that sparks a lot of interest. If I can get a student in class, I can get them interested in printmaking. But if you're at a university that printmaking isn't required, it's more of a struggle because they don't have to take it.
Right.
They can take other things that they've heard of, like ceramics and painting.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can get them in class, I can get them interested and pumped about it.
That's nice. So where would you like to see your work evolve from here?
I don't know. It's ever evolving, and I have no idea where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
From one year to the next. And a lot of things kind of happen by accident, and they stumble into these things. I never planned on doing Kentucky Monster Myths and Legends, and I read a book about it,
mm-hmm.
and then I worked for 3 years making prints
uh-huh.
about it. So it's a lot just happenstance. Things that just happen,
Mm-hmm. I've been with the Crary for about a year now, and every exhibit's quite a bit different, and this is probably one of the more unusual exhibits we're going to be displaying since I've been involved. Especially the size. I mean, we're going to be looking at a number of prints which are going to be 4 by 8 foot
mm-hmm.
in size, with a lot of content. So I think a lot of people will be interested in, particularly in the imaging, and plus the magnitude of the pieces will be interesting as well.
Yeah, I really like working large. It's for being the same method, and you carve everything the same, you draw it the same, and you print it the same. It's a completely different beast whenever you start working on something 4 foot by 8 foot.
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of fun, but it takes a long time. Those block, I'll work on a block the better part of a year for
mm-hmm.
those. It's a pretty constant struggle and battle, and keeping interested and keeping the work ethic up
mm-hmm.
is always the hard thing for those.
And that seems to be a constant with a number of artists. It does involve a lot of work, and your work certainly displays that as well. Do you have any words of wisdom for other printmakers out there who might be thinking about this as a venture in their life?
As in doing printmaking for a long time?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Long-term printmaking? Well, really, the best advice you can give any artist, it doesn't even have to be a printmaker, is for every minute that you're not making art, there's people who are passing you. And those people that are passing you are getting closer to their goal of making a living with their art.
I see. And
if you take time off, it's a hard job. It's a hard job to get a job in printmaking.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to keep your nose down.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're certainly looking forward to the opening your exhibit. Again, it's going to be from March 3rd to the 24th. We will be having opening reception on Friday, March 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. So we look forward to opening your show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Derrick.
Think I'm better than anyone else. Just trying to help you help your...
The Kentucky Monster Mash is a 14-piece individual conglomerate of prints that piece together to make one long narrative. I've carved it and drawn them in a way that they can be completely rearranged in almost an unlimited amount of number of different ways, and it still reads as a complete universal narrative. And I didn't really plan it out to be that way. I'd read a book about Kentucky monsters and got kind of inspired and wanted to do some prints about it. So I did a block. I had a list. I'd kept notes, and I had a list of about 15 different stories from all over the state.
Are we going to be have all these then at the Crary then?
Yeah, this is the first time I'm going to show them all together.
Okay, good.
So I started out. I drew and carved one block, and that's really all I'd planned on ever doing. And I had a list of like 15 monsters, and I only got to about 4 of them. So I wasn't really happy with that. So I decided to do 2, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to do 2 pieces of the same subject matter, I want to make it so they can be rearranged and hung in different combinations and still line up.
Mm-hmm.
So I drew the second block and it worked fine, but then I was really depressed because then I had 2 blocks and they could only be shown 2 ways. So it really didn't matter if I worked that hard to figure out how to get them to line up. So I decided to do 3, and then I did the 3rd one, and then I realized you could still only show it about 2 different ways. So then I did 4, and then I did 4 more, and then I did 6 more.
So I see. You could literally just line them right up, and they just blend continually on.
Yeah. They and there's, I mean, it took the better part of about 3 years of planning and carving and printing to get these to line up.
Mm-hmm.
And get them all done and finished. But and I've never shown them anywhere, so it's going to be interesting to see what they all look like together. I've sold a couple of complete sets of them, but I've never seen them all hanging up together. So to see pictures of it,
we'll look forward to that.
But I'll go through and kind of name some of my favorites. Kentucky Monster Mash Part 1. There's a character dressed up like Batman with overalls. Mm-hmm. That's based off of a guy named Lightning Jack, who a lot of people believe was actually Jack the Ripper. And at the same time that Jack the Ripper was in London, there was another guy named Lightning Jack that would wear a cape and a mask, and he would always jump out and grab women late at night when they were walking down the street, and they never caught him because he could run really fast and jump really high. And I guess back then that's all it took to get away. Mm-hmm. So at one point, Lightning Jack disappears, and then he shows back up in Louisville, Kentucky. So they think that it's the same guy, but they're not really sure. But yeah, and it's, from what I hear, it's actually what the comic book character Batman was based off of, because he would wear a mask and a cape, and the mask had the little bat ears on it.
So how long ago was this story from?
Oh, this would have been I guess it's like the 1700s.
Oh, okay.
1800s. I don't know, a long time ago.
Mm.
So I don't know if that's true or not, but I did read that on the internet, and everything you read on the internet is true.
Yeah, definitely.
So that. And let's see. On the Kentucky Monster Mash Part 4, there's my favorite one in that one. This is actually the first block I did for this whole series. There's a Cyclops gorilla, and there's an old ancient Indian burial ground in the town next to Lexington. It's a little town called Nicholasville, and there's this rumor that the Indians put a curse on this burial mound that if you messed with it, the Cyclops gorilla would come out of a tree and kill your pigs.
Not the pigs.
Yeah, which I guess back then it was a big deal. But I don't know anyone that has pigs anymore, but maybe everybody did until they messed with the mound. You never know.
Mm-hmm. I did away with them.
So on Kentucky Monster Mash Part 5, there's a giant alligator, and this is all part of a hoax. There's another small town on the other side of Lexington named Winchester, and these kids took a picture of an alligator and photoshopped it in front of their pond in front of their parents' house, and passed it off as an actual picture of a 25-foot long alligator, and it made it all the way, and it was published in the New York Times.
Oh man!
Not even sure when that was, but it ended up coming clean that it was a hoax. So I've got a giant 24-foot alligator there. Mm-hmm. In Part 7, I put zombies in it. I've got a love affair with zombies. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, which was Return of the Living Dead and all those movies, and I just love them. I ate them up. I still watch a lot of them. But Return of the Living Dead was set in Louisville, which was good enough for me to include them into this whole series. There's not actual legends about zombies in Kentucky, except for that movie, so I just added them.
Yeah, if you could do Cyclops gorillas, you could do zombies.
That's right. Complete artistic license. In Part 8, there's a devil duck snake, which that's really all the information I got. It's just this weird hybrid monster that's supposed to be in the mountains in eastern Kentucky. Part devil, part duck, and part snake.
Doing a keg stand.
That's the chupacabra doing a keg stand. There's some giant Smurfs. I've always heard... everybody knows the rumors on Kentucky. We're all inbred, you know? And this I've never seen it. I live close to eastern Kentucky, but there's still a couple hours away. But I've heard that there's mountain people that have blue skin. And I don't know if that's true. People swear that they've seen it. I've never seen it. So these are some giant Smurfs, and I hear it's some kind of like hereditary skin disorder that turn blue. But I don't know. I don't know for real.
They probably do
but
exist.
Also, right in the back is that's Daniel Boone wrestling Bigfoot. And I looked this up because Daniel Boone was actually the first American to report a Bigfoot sighting.
Oh man!
And it was. So Daniel Boone's in this.
I did not know that.
And let's see, down in part 11, I've got a mini gorilla riding a giant lizard. They don't actually, there's no myth with it where they're together. There's just myths of mini creatures and giant lizards, so.
What about the parachuting snakes, though?
Parachuting snakes, that was a rumor that the government was parachuting in rattlesnakes to take care of the rodent problem in the mountains.
Okay.
But, you know, they don't do, they actually work really hard to keep, you know, animals out of places they're not supposed to be, so they would never do that. But, there's blogs all over the internet about parachuting rattlesnakes into Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Part 12's it's got a lot of my favorite ones that I found. Right in the front, that's the axe handle hound, which, if you leave your axe out overnight, the axe handle hound's going to come up and eat the handle. And I don't really know the origin of the story, but I'm pretty sure it's something that loggers at one time came up with to kind of tell the story on how they lost their axes overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's this dog that's just supposed to go around and eat your axe handles. Over his shoulder on the right, that's a side-hill wampus, which is a type of cat that lives at the top of mountains, and he's got one set of legs are longer than the other set, and the reason for that is so he can walk around a mountain peak and not have to squat on one side, because mountain peaks all are like this, right?
Exactly.
So the side-hill wampus, it's hard to tell on my website, but he's wearing lifts on one side.
I do see that, yes.
Stand up straight.
Uh-huh.
And on the other side, on part 13, there's a man dog. And that one, I'm not so happy with my carving on the man dog. He looks good, and the tones and everything are printed right, but his face is supposed to be more like a human's.
Uh-huh.
The part of this that I'm really not happy about any of these, and it's that one part. He looks good, but he just doesn't look like a man. And he's supposed to be a man dog, half man, half dog.
Uh-huh.
So that one I'm not too happy with. Part 9's got a meat rain. And that actually happened in Kentucky. There's news stories all over the internet about it. And it was like 40 or 50 years ago. I'm not exactly sure. And they don't even know what caused it. But on this one person's farm out in the middle of the country, it just started raining meat. And they've never figured out why. People think that a tornado hit like a meat factory or a meat packaging, and it just carried it and just dumped it on this one person's property. They have no idea where it came from, but one person's property rained meat for an entire hour.
Nice.
Which is just bizarre. And on part 14 is called a billadad, which is half kangaroo, half beaver, and half bird. It's just this bizarre. It's one of those bizarre combinations of animals,
mm-hmm.
which I'm actually starting to work a little bit with now on a lot smaller scale. New work that I think I'm going to be sending up is I've got a coonigator, which is a half raccoon and half alligator, and a tunicorn, which is a tuna fish with a unicorn horn.
Nice.
I've been working a lot with the combinations of animals lately.
Uh-huh.
For the Kentucky mishmash, we were talking a little earlier about how they're so jam-packed, and I was trying to make a composition out of just sheer luck, I guess, of things working out, and a Kentucky mishmash is a good example of how it doesn't work out. This has got an awful lot of stories throughout Kentucky for hundreds of years, and I've just jam-packed it all into about 2 by 8 foot. Mm-hmm. And it's a mess, and it's a lot to look at. But in a lot of ways it works, because it is such a mess. You have to look pretty close at it to really see what's going on. Mm-hmm. So in one way, it works without a composition, just because you have to pay that much attention to it. But some of my favorite stories that are in here are right in the middle between the two guns is Cassius Clay, who, not the boxer, who's also from Kentucky. Cassius Clay, as in Henry Clay's brother, who was a politician and was really good friends with Abraham Lincoln. Both of the Clay brothers were from Kentucky and real close to the Lexington area. But Cassius Clay was insane. He was crazy. He was completely anti-slavery and would do speeches in Kentucky really trying to work the cause. And he'd get heckled a lot by slave owners in Kentucky. And actually right down the street, probably about a mile from my house, he was giving a speech on the steps of one of the old libraries downtown, and this guy was heckling him. So Cassius Clay pulls out his Bowie knife and jumps off the stage on this guy and cuts his ear, nose, and carves his eye out.
Oh man!
It's a huge crowd of people, and he's just about to just murder this guy. And his friends had to run up and grab the guy and throw him over the fence to save his life. Uh-huh. And this guy was really good friends with Abraham Lincoln, but Lincoln started to get really worried about having him on his side, because he took things so seriously he was going to kill for it. He turned him into the ambassador for Russia and sent him off to Russia for a bunch of years, but he ended up murdering a few people over there, and they brought him back.
Oh man!
And then right above Cassius Clay is a bunch of people holding up body parts, and this is one of the more funny stories that I've ran across. It was a doctor that had gotten really sick, and he didn't really talk to his family that much, but his whole family knew he was a doctor and knew he had a lot of money. So when he was on his deathbed, they all would come up and say, "Oh, I would love to have something to remember you by." So, and all of them were doing it. People that hadn't talked to him for 20 years were I just would love to have something to remember you by. So when he died, he left a will and willed each member of the family a piece of his body. And donated all of his money to the surgeon that did the autopsy. So that was a pretty good story. And let's see, what else have we got in here? We got people looking down barrels of shotguns. There's been a few people that have died looking down the barrel to see if it's loaded. Right. Let's see, and kind of close to the top left corner, there's a guy in a glass case, and that's Speedy Atkins, and that's my hometown is Paducah, Kentucky, in western Kentucky, and Speedy is a petrified man, and he was on display for years in Paducah. And even when I was a kid, he was on display. He's not on display anymore. I think they've actually buried him now. But there was a big flood, and Speedy floated away for a little while, and then eventually floated back.
Was there a tide in Kentucky?
Yeah, back in the same town. He missed it and came back. But there's a lot of tragic stories that I've got here. The bottom with the 2 shot kids and Santa Claus is a story I read about this husband who dressed up like Santa Claus to surprise the family, and came inside. Everybody was excited, and somebody had gotten a shotgun for Christmas, so he was just gonna kind of played with it, picked it up, and was playing with it, and shot his wife in the face. So could you imagine the trauma that these kids have grown up with after Santa Claus come in and shoot their mom in front of them on Christmas morning? Just from being an idiot has just scarred these kids, and probably these kids, like kids and grandkids for life. Just awful. Oh
man.
And up in Kentucky mishmash too. This one I kind of learned my lesson with the first one, and I kind of tried to focus more on the composition and not cramming so many things into it. So let's see. On the left is is a story about this woman in the mall here in Lexington that would sneak into Victoria's Secret and get a bunch of underwear and try them all on, but then would just run out of the store wearing them. So she'd come into Victoria's Secret, put on 5 or 6 pairs of panties, and then put on her pants and just walk out.
Right.
They caught on to her about the 4th or 5th time she did it, and they busted in when she was trying them on, getting ready to steal them, and she just took off running. It took off running through the mall with nothing but her panties on. And over on the right side is a woman that got arrested for a DUI here in Lexington, and she tried to escape whenever they were making her change into the orange jumpsuit. She tried to escape by squirting the policeman in the face with the milk. I mean, and this is just, these are things that you can't make up. I mean, these are stories. None of this is made up. Over between the two is a husband and wife, newlyweds, having a knife fight. This actually happened down the street from my parents' house. I think before I was born, it happened down the street from my parents' house. It was newlyweds that just moved into this house, and they got in a fight about something, and it spilled over into the yard. And they ended up stabbing each other to death on the front yard.
They killed each other.
Married. It was a pretty serious argument.
Oh man.
And the only part about this that I don't know if are true in Kentucky or not is the log cabin trailer and the church trailer. But we've got plenty of things that are close enough that I just kind of took some liberties. That's one thing that you see a lot of are trailer parks that people have done like quite a bit of work on their trailers. I haven't seen any log cabins, but I've seen double wide trailers, which is just 2 single wide trailers right next to each other, so they can, or double highs. I've seen them stacked on top of each other.
Oh man.
So I know those two are going for sure. The duct tape bandit was a guy who would go around and rob gas stations all around this area, but he didn't wear a mask. He'd wrap his face up with duct tape, and they caught him and put his picture up on the news, and that's what he looks like. In fact, I had this up in a show at the Art League here in Lexington, and somebody came up to me and asked me, is that supposed to be the duct tape bandit on both sides? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I went to high school with a guy. It looks just like him. That's actually been a little bit of a funny thing that I didn't really expect to happen. Making woodcuts based in Kentucky were for people to have that direct of a relationship with the stories that I put on here.
Right.
So that was pretty interesting to have somebody go to high school with the subject of one of the woodcuts.
Mm-hmm. He should have bought a print, that's for sure.
Yeah, he should have. Behind that, we've got the porn and liquor store. I don't know if they have those anywhere else, but we've got some porn and liquor stores where you can. It's just like the one-stop shop. Mm-hmm. And we had a school bus driver get in a lot of trouble for stopping at the porn and liquor store on the way home from school
with kids on the bus.
with kids on the bus. We had this group of guys that went on a big ATM robbery spree. They would go up and chain their bumper to the front of the ATM machine, and then drive off and yank the front of the machine off, and then go and steal all the money. So one time they tried to do it here in town, and it actually ripped the bumper off the back of the truck.
With a license plate on it.
Freaked out and just drove away. And they got caught pretty quick because they left their license plate on the bumper.
Right, yeah. I think I actually heard that story before.
Did you? Yeah, a lot of these are coming from a website called fark.com, FARK.com.
Yep.
And it was actually started by a UK University of Kentucky student. And it's not just focused on Kentucky, although there is a lot of Kentucky stories on there. But it's a good way to go and find stories that you've missed or people don't put in the newspaper.
Right.
From all over the country. You can select it down to different states. And he's from Kentucky too. I haven't put him in any prints yet, but maybe at some point. Let's see. Deep fried Kentucky wieners is right below that. I'm gonna send that one up too.
Oh man, that does not look good.
This is got. It doesn't have a whole lot of stories in it, but the ones that are in it are pretty good. The guy holding the chicken leg is a guy. So I'm not sure where in Kentucky he's from, but he sued KFC because he claimed that they sold him a penis-shaped chicken leg. So there's Colonel Sanders cracking up and he's crying, holding the chicken leg. He didn't win the lawsuit because most chicken legs, really kind of looked like that anyway.
Right.
He didn't win the lawsuit, but it was a pretty funny story, so I put it in. Mm-hmm. Next to that is a robber holding a bologna sandwich, and this happened down the street from my parents' house as well. There's a doctor that lives about a mile down the road, and he was out of town, and this guy broke into the house and was robbing him. But he got really hungry, so he went and woke up the wife and asked her to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that's the robber telling the wife to be quiet while he's holding the peanut butter sandwich. All the way over in the corner holding the shotgun is Hunter S. Thompson. No, it's not. It's not Hunter S. Thompson. It's Ralph Steadman. Ralph Steadman, if you don't know who he is the artist who did all the illustrations for a lot of Hunter S. Thompson's books. He did the poster and the cover for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the movie and the book. Mm-hmm. And he's from England, and from what I hear, I don't know if this is true either, but I've read it in some books, and I've heard a lot of people tell me this story. But in Lexington, that he actually spent a little bit of time in a mental institution. And it was right around the same time that the lithos for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas were being printed. Uh-huh. So when the printing company got them printed, they called him up and said, "We got the posters done. We'll bring them out for you to sign." And he said, "Sure, just bring a shotgun with you, and we'll do this." And they were like, "Well, what do you mean? What do you mean bring a shotgun?" And he goes, "Well, I've decided I'm going to shoot them." And they were like, "Well, you can't shoot these prints. We just printed them. They're perfect. You can't shoot them." He goes, "Well, I'm not going to sign them until you let me shoot them." So they finally broke down and brought a shotgun out to the mental institution and hung up all the posters, and he cocked the shotgun and shot all the prints, and then walked up and signed them. So if the story's true and you actually see any of these prints, uh-huh, like from this certain edition from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, you ought to be able to find little tiny bullet holes in it. I've never actually seen an actual, like, the poster that this is supposed to be based on. I've never actually seen that poster in person, so I have no idea. But I've had several people tell me that story.
Oh man, good story.
The True Stories from Kentucky Backwoods. This was actually the first print that I started to use True Stories from Kentucky in, and it's not so big. It's only about 4 foot by 2 foot. But this is actually a linoleum cut, which is I've got it mislabeled on my website. It's a linoleum cut. The process is all the same. It's just instead of carving on a piece of plywood, I'm carving on like old kitchen floor linoleum. Uh-huh. The stories that I've got on here are the two main figures is a guy holding a shotgun and another guy with a PBR can on his head. And I teach at the University of Kentucky, and we've got like half of the campus is the UK hospital. And there's not really many hospitals in eastern Kentucky, so if something serious happens, they get airlifted in here. So in the summertime, you hear helicopters all day long. And everybody always says that it's because people that are deer hunting got bored and started shooting beer cans off each other's heads. And I thought they were joking, except I do know that it happened one time. And so this is two guys out hunting, and they got bored because they're not finding any deer, so they just decided to start shooting beer cans off each other's heads. And he just got blasted in the face. Which isn't really funny, but I mean, it's just so stupid. Why would anybody do that?
You assume they're empty beer cans, and why are they empty?
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're drunk, then the one thing you don't want to do is try to shoot beer cans off your buddy's head.
Or at least you go first.
All right. There's the guy with the black leather jacket with the truck on the roof. This is this was probably about 10 years ago. I remember this before I think I was a sophomore in undergrad, and this was a story of a guy that him and his buddies were just drinking out in the backyard, and they got pretty drunk and decided it would be a good idea to build a ramp up to the roof of their house, and so he could take his truck up there and drive around. So that's what they did, and he drove his truck up to the roof. But you know, roofs aren't made to withstand the weight of a truck. So the first thing he started to do was collapse the roof end. And they had to get a crane come and lift the truck off the top of the house. And this was actually the front page of the paper the next day. It was this guy cracking up, holding a Budweiser can with his truck, about to collapse his entire house. And he just thought it was the funniest thing ever.
It is.
Kentucky is not really like these woodcuts. I'm just picking out the best stories that I hear.
Uh-huh.
You know, they would be interesting if it wasn't like the cream of the crop stories. So don't expect to drive through Kentucky and see things like this on the side of the road every turn. All right, so the holy water hose down. I mentioned that I get stories off of NPR every once in a while. This is one of my favorite ones that I got. And I'm not sure where this took place. But the holy water hose down is based off of a story that NPR ran on a church that had been burned down. So the church burned down, but they still wanted to hold services with the congregation, everybody still involved, but they didn't really have a venue. So they were looking around town to find a place that they could hold services in until they built this new church. And they had an old movie theater that was abandoned. So they moved in there. But the thing is, the movie theater used to be the town's old porno theater. So right in the middle of like one of the Sunday school rooms was just mountains and mountains of vintage porn. So they decided, instead of having a groundbreaking ceremony, they would just have a big bonfire where they'd burn up all this old porn and just kind of welcome everybody to the new venue. So before it started, they called the fire department and had them come out just in case the film got out of hand. If anybody had seen the Inglourious Bastards, you know, the ending of that movie was where the theater burns down because the film is so explosive, and it was the same deal. They didn't want it to get out of hand,
right?
So they had the fire department come out. So when the fire department showed up, the priest blessed the truck and asked to have all the water inside of it turned into holy water. So everything went fine at the barbecue, and nothing happened, nothing got out of hand. So at the end of the night, the firemen just kind of released the hoses, and all the kids just played in the water. So this was what I envisioned happening next, which was that all the popes and all the clergy would join forces with the fire department and travel around the country following Girls Gone Wild and just hose them down with the holy water. Uh-huh. So we've got in this scene we've got a Girls Gone Wild shoot and popes with water guns filled with holy water and people with fire hoses hosing down the girls.
Children play out of harm's way where they don't do anything to you. Take me back to my yard where life don't seem so hard, where we all hold hands, we understand the meaning of hallelujah.